Hello everyone. My name is Arya, and today I'd like to share a deeply personal story from my past that has had a significant impact on who I am today. This is the first time I'm talking about it, so I hope you'll stick with me until the end. The story takes us back to when I was 26 and married Damian, who is now my husband. Damian is not someone you can easily forget. His tall stature, striking deep blue eyes, neatly styled brown hair, and warm smile make a lasting impression on everyone he meets. We first met through a mutual friend, and honestly, I wasn't expecting much. I've always believed that love should come naturally, but I had no idea this encounter would change everything. If you enjoy hearing these genuine, heartfelt stories, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and show your support by liking and watching the entire video. I promise you, it's a story worth hearing. Damian left an indelible impression on me after our first meeting. He was not only elegant, but also respectful and thoughtful. Our conversation felt natural, as if we'd known each other forever. I felt warmth in him right away, which was something I had been longing for. After getting to know each other, we decided to marry. Our Damian was a wonderful spouse who always looked out for me. He worked hard for his position as director of a home supplies firm. Despite his hectic schedule, he always made time to eat supper with me or talk after a long day. I felt fortunate because I had not only a wonderful husband, but also a loving home. At least in the early days, Damian, our life together seemed perfect. I was lucky to have found someone caring, successful, and loving. But his job kept taking up more time. He would leave the house at 6 a.m. and wouldn't return until 9 p.m., or even later if there were urgent meetings or projects. His company wasn't close to our house, so even though he drove a luxury BMW, the commute took him bad. I missed him badly, especially over supper when I was alone. But I consoled myself by recalling that all of his hard work was for our future. Initially, I told myself that he was sacrificing his time for both of our pleasure, and I felt perfect despite his rigorous schedule. Damian always made an effort to prioritize our time together. We'd eat dinner together, watch movies, or simply talk about our days, making the most of each moment. Our bond was strong, and I felt his love in every moment we shared. I thought we were a perfect couple, and nothing could change that. But as time passed, his work pressure increased, and Damian began to change. He'd come home exhausted, barely able to muster enough energy for a conversation, and dinner was often a quiet, subdued murmur. There were occasions when I wanted to engage him in intimacy, but he would grin and claim he needed to sleep. I realized he was exhausted, but despite my intense love for him, I couldn't help but feel ignored and lonely. He no longer met my emotional requirements. For a young, bright woman like myself, the rising emptiness was impossible to ignore. I kept telling myself that this was only a phase, and that our love would triumph. But deep down, I couldn't deny that the distance was producing breaches in our bond. I was still young and energetic, with strong desires and demands. Damian's lengthy work hours and frequent vacations made me feel increasingly deprived of the agonizing loneliness, and I frequently found myself attempting to console myself alone. On any given day, Damian would leave early for work, leaving me to do housekeeping. Nothing odd occurred at first, but as I finished the cleaning, I felt an uneasy unrest in my heart, a searing aching. Damian had been too busy this week to spend time with me, and his absence had begun to weigh on me. I felt obliged to vent my feelings, so I walked into my bedroom, where I felt most at peace, to relax. I'm not sure if I locked the door or forgot in my rush, but I got lost in my feelings, utterly unconscious of what was going on around me. The room fell silent as my emotions overtook me completely. I looked up to see a person standing near the entrance. It was my husband's father. Harold was gazing directly at me, leaving me stunned and speechless. His gaze stayed fixated on me, and I realized he had been observing me for quite some time without my knowledge. I worried, trying to mask my uncertainty. "What are you doing there, Dad?" Harold stuttered, appearing to break out of a daze. "Oh, I was only passing by," before swiftly saying, "Don't worry." I couldn't see anything in his words, which only added to my confusion. I hadn't asked him anything yet, but he was justifying himself as if he had anything to conceal. The stillness between us was deafening, and the anxiety in the room was evident. Harold swiftly went, leaving me standing there with my heart hammering. I couldn't stop thinking about him standing at the door, wondering what was going to happen next. I assumed that was the end of it, but it wasn't. That afternoon, the lovely yellow glow of the sunset streamed through the kitchen window, bathing the room in pleasant light. I was making supper as usual, while Damian was still at work. The home was silent, with only the noises of cutting and the aroma of food cooking. I felt comfortable in my tiny white tank top and knee-length skirt. I felt an odd sense, like if someone was observing me. I halted and slowly turned to face the kitchen door. Harold stared at me, wide-eyed and unblinking. I was stunned. After a time, I said, attempting to sound like a normal father, "What are you staring at?" Harold was shocked, as if he had awoken from a dream. His cheeks reddened and he muttered, "Oh no, I was just thinking." He suddenly turned and exited the kitchen, his footsteps shaking, leaving me standing there, both uncomfortable and perplexed. His behaviors reminded me of the first time he noticed me in the room, and I realized that his conduct wasn't simply a figment of my imagination. He frequently glanced at me for longer than normal, and I saw him laughing to himself as his eyes lingered on me. I tried to persuade myself that it was just a father-in-law's care for his daughter-in-law, but I couldn't get over the mounting unease I felt as his acts got more daring. Whenever we walked down the tight corridor, his hand would brush against mine for a brief instant, which shocked me. I wasn't sure if these movements were deliberate, but there was a rising discomfort. I began to feel confined in my own home when I spotted him calmly observing me from a distance, his eyes filled with something I couldn't identify. One morning, sunshine spilled into the kitchen, and we were eating breakfast as a family, the clatter of chopsticks and bowls disturbing the stillness as the meal came to a close. Damian stared at all of us. I was cleaning when I felt two powerful hands wrap closely around me. I dropped the towel in my hand, my heart beating before I could respond. Harold muttered, his voice shaking, "Aria, can I hold you for a moment?" I froze, my body stiff, unable to believe what I was hearing as a wave of emotions washed over me. I wanted to resist and push him away, but my body seemed to betray me. I took a deep breath and managed to say, "Dad, you cannot do this. It's wrong," but he hasn't released me. He drew me closer, his breath warm against my ear, his body tense. "Aria, I know this is wrong, but I can't stop myself." I had kept this inside for far too long, and I was filled with shame, anger, and fear. I tried to break free, but he held on tight as if desperate to confess everything he had been hiding. "I can't forget what I didn't intend to look at. Stop thinking about yourself. I'm sorry, but I can't control myself anymore. My face burned with embarrassment and anger, and I finally pushed harder. Breaking free, I turned around and looked at him with determination. Dad, this is not right. I cannot accept this, please. Harold lowered the stop. His gaze fell, but after a moment he lifted his head, eyes filled with resolve, and stepped closer, his voice low but urgent. Aria, I can't hide this any longer. Since that day, I haven't been able to forget how much this feeling hurts. I stepped back, my hands gripping the edge of the dining table, my heart racing with fear and anger. Dad, this isn't right. This is our family. You can't think like this. But he didn't stop. He moved closer, almost pleading. Just once, Arya, and I promise it won't go any further. I couldn't take it anymore and turned Ned away. Dad, please stop avoiding his gaze. This is a family that we cannot destroy. Harold breathed in and refused to give up Arya. I can't forget what I saw. I have tried, but you can't make me feel alive again. After all these years of being alone, you don't understand my anger mixed with guilt and helplessness. I turned to him, my voice firm and resolute. Dad, I can't. I will not do this. This is my family. Please stop before it's too late. My words struck him like a blow to the eyes, filled with pain and disappointment. After a long silence, he lowered his head, his voice hoarse. Aria, I'm sorry. I don't deserve to be your father-in-law. I don't know why I acted like this. I couldn't control myself. I stood still, my eyes locked on him. My heart was still racing, but I managed to say calmly, this has to stop now. This is our family, and I would never cross this boundary. Harold did not respond, simply nodding, as if he accepted my words. He then stepped back, his face filled with regret and fatigue. He turned and walked out of the room, his footsteps heavy, echoing in the hallway. I stood there shaken, finally breathing a sigh of relief, but I knew the peace of this home had been shattered, and I couldn't forget what had happened from that day on. My father-in-law Harold appeared to vanish from our daily routine. He seldom ventured outside, and devoted most of his time to his room, as if his connection to the world had been severed. When he did appear, it was only for brief moments, walking quietly past me without saying a word, avoiding any eye contact. The atmosphere in the house became heavy, and his silence was a constant reminder of what had happened. Damian had no idea what had transpired. He assumed his father was just going through a phase of sadness or loneliness as he aged. One evening during dinner, Damian remarked that he noticed Harold was no longer as enthusiastic. He told me, I think Dad is tired or something is wrong. He doesn't go outside as much as he used to, and he's no longer interested in the things he once loved. Maybe I should take some time to talk to him, but I'm not sure where to begin. I nodded and kept my voice calm. I think Dad just needs some time off, I said softly, attempting to suppress the anxiety inside me. The truth was that only I knew why Harold had withdrawn, and the guilt weighed heavily on me. Every day, I often wondered if things would ever return to normal. I wish I could forget everything and return to the past. But the look Harold gave me on the rare occasions we crossed paths in the house still haunts me. They weren't filled with anger or resentment, but with a heavy, lingering sadness, like he was trapped in his own unbearable guilt. I didn't know what to do. Should I try to ignore everything and pretend it never happened? Or should I confront it and find a way to resolve it regardless of my decision? I could feel the distance growing between me and him, and the peace in our family slowly slipping away. Time was passing. But I knew deep down that these wounds would never heal through this experience. Regardless of the situation, I gleaned the most crucial life lesson. Never stray beyond moral boundaries. In moments of weakness or emotional turmoil, we may be tempted to act impulsively, but the consequences can be devastating and irreversible. It's crucial to maintain ethical boundaries and protect what truly matters, our family. Avoiding or ignoring problems won't make them go away. It often makes them worse. The key to protecting ourselves and our loved ones' lives and staying resilient is standing by our values and respecting ourselves. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned is the importance of open and honest communication, especially in family relationships. We should never shy away from sharing our feelings and concerns with those closest to us, particularly our partners. Keeping things bottled up can lead to misunderstandings and create. Thank you for listening to my story. If this message resonated with you, please support me by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I am eager to share more stories with you in the future.